Welcome to Heart Mindify. Before we start the show, just a reminder to share, rate, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to it. And please give us a 5-star rating. It helps us beat the big tech algorithms.
I'm John Izzy. Change can be difficult for a lot of us, but when we understand what makes us tick, we develop a better understanding of who we are and begin a journey of discovering our best self. Join me for a free session at johnizzy.com.
And I'm Kim Cordy, creator of the Emotion Chef Framework, an emotion management tool. Thoughts drive emotions, and emotions drive thoughts, but it's our emotions that drive our decisions and behaviors. Find out more at kimcordy.com.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Knowing each other personally and socially for the past 10 years, Kim and John have joined forces, bringing years of experience and training, providing a platform for growth and personal development, along with a little humor. John is the heart, Kim is the mind, and together they are Heart Mindify. From the stormy East Coast in the city of Charlestown, West Virginia. My God, Kim, it is horrible here. We had storms coming through today like mad. Electric went out, Comcast went out. It was horrendous. I love the smell of the rain, but this was nuts. How are you?
I'm afraid to tell you how stunning the weather is. Here in the lovely Napa Valley, we get the morning fog. It's overcast, and then the sun comes out, and it's stunning, and it's gorgeous. So it was a cool walk for the dogs this morning, and then today we're going to have a high of 76, and it will be sunny.
Wow. Well, actually, it was pretty nice here this morning. I got up with the dog, and we went outside. We took a lap around the park that's right in front of my house, and that was really nice. And then I had to run to the store real quick. And then I'm sitting here working, and I'm looking out, and it's getting darker and darker. And I'm like, uh-oh, we're going to get a storm. And then my phone started going off. The computer started going off. The watch started going off. Severe thunderstorm showers. And boy, when they came, they really came. So it cooled things off nicely, but man, it really poured. It's crazy.
It never rains in the summertime here. Like if it does, everyone's freaked out. And if it does rain, it's like a little bit of spattering of rain, nothing super serious. I think we had a thunderstorm earlier in the springtime, but that's spring. The first time I saw rain in the summertime, I was like, what's going on? I was visiting some people in the South. It's an odd phenomenon for those of us in California.
Well, you guys get that. You guys have problems with fires, though, so we don't have those over here.
No, we have fires and earthquakes.
Yeah.
If we had more rain, we'd have less fires. But yeah, everyone's got their cross to bear, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how's everything else going?
Everything else is, going. No, you're fine. Everything else is going pretty fine. Our listeners are probably at this point wondering, what in the heck are they doing? Well, you know what, guys? We are just going to talk today. So many times Kim and I spend a lot of time in preparation for our shows on Saturday. And we were talking earlier in the week. It's Wednesday. So we were talking on Monday, and I was getting everything ready for the show. And I said to Kim, I I just don't feel it. I just want to talk, and I just want to, just chat like we normally do during the day and just record it. So, yeah.
Right. Our morning conversations, we talk almost every morning, and we have some of the best conversations. And I think we said to each other at some point, like, man, we should record these and make them a podcast.
Yeah.
That's the idea. We didn't really talk too much today, so we could share our morning banter now.
There you go. So I've got a story to tell you, and then I want to hear what your reaction to it is. So many years ago, God, many years ago at this point, many years ago when I left the Franciscans, I really didn't know what I was going to do. And so I was sitting at the kitchen table at my parents' house, and my dad said, "What are you going to do, son?" And I said, "I don't know. What I want to do is just get away for a year." And he said, "Get away?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, I've got a little bit of cash. I said, and I just want a year to myself where I can just not worry about anything and just kind of just live just live my life. Maybe pick up an odd job here and there, find a place to live. I want to go someplace where I didn't know anybody, that kind of thing, and just kind of regroup because, in that time period of my life, it was very heady and very serious. And I was just kind of exhausted. So he said, "Where are you going to go?" And I said, "I think I'm going to go to Montana." He was like, "Montana? What the heck's in Montana?" So we laughed about that. And eventually in December, after the Christmas holiday, I flew out to Montana. Not a great time to go to Montana. When I landed, there was like 50 inches of snow on the ground or whatever. And that stayed what seemed like a lifetime. But I remember driving a car in the city. And of course, the city's not really a city like you would have in New York or, or in DC. It was more of a little town in downtown Missoula. And I stopped into the donut shop just to grab a donut and a cup of coffee. And I went in, and as I was leaving the donut shop, there was a cop standing at my car writing me a ticket. And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" And she said, "Oh, I'm writing you a ticket." I said, "What do you mean you're writing me a ticket? I just stopped in just to get a donut and a cup of coffee." And she said, "Well, the sign down the street says you can't park here. You're in a bus lane." I was like, "Wait a minute. Come on. I just walked in for 3 minutes and now you're going to give me a ticket. I'm new here, right?" It's like, I didn't know the sign, and the sign you said is down at the other end of the street. And she kind of just looked at me and finished writing the ticket. And she said something like, "If I started to write the ticket, I have to finish it now." Oh, I was furious. That just made me argue even more with her. So I was giving her, the best argument in the world, and she just wasn't doing anything but writing that ticket. And when she left and I got the ticket, it got in my car, and I was mad. And I was driving out. I said, "Wow, we just spent 3 minutes arguing, and I got louder and she got a little louder, and she stood her ground and I stood my ground, and nobody moved." And I thought, is that what our arguments are like? You know what I mean? It's like, is that really what we do? Do we just argue and argue and argue to prove our point? And we go into an argument and we never budge. And so I thought about that then. And then in the landscape of today, I think about that often too. So I don't know, I thought that was something fun to get into a topic of maybe arguing and,
I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
If you could go back, you're standing on the street, you're watching her, the ticket's already in progress. Is there something that you would do or say differently?
Now looking back on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, now looking back on it, I probably would have approached it different. I probably would have said, "Oh, I see that you're writing me a ticket. I'm new here. Is there something that I'm doing wrong? I don't notice a sign anywhere. Can you help me out here?" And maybe have more of a I don't want to say a sappy response, but more concern of what I was doing rather than saying, "No, no, 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 no. What are you doing? What are you doing?" Like blaming her for doing her job. Taking defeat that I did something wrong, but then trying to ask her what it was, where was the sign posted or something like that. So yeah, I probably would have handled it different back then. Now thinking about it.
The thought that came to mind when you were saying that was that she made the statement, "I've already started writing it, so I have to."
Right.
And I've been told that before by police. And I think that there's something to that. And your opportunity to fight the ticket probably would have been before she started writing, right? To win any sort of argument as to her not completing it or not even initiating it. So if you think about it now, you could have asked her, well, I didn't know you have an opportunity to go to court. Is there something you could tell me, like, that I could say, like, can you help me to fight this ticket? I've got no money. She might have been helpful. Like, I've had cops start to write them and then they talk to me and they're like, okay, I'm not going to write you a ticket for this. I'm going to lower it down so that it impacts you less, because they couldn't stop. So what I'm talking about here is stopping and seeing, like, what are the ways in which you can get a win from this conversation? Because if you can't stop what's going to happen from happening, how can you make what's going to happen better?
No, that's a really good point. And, I think it's funny because when you're saying that, I'm thinking to myself, what do we do in the heat of the moment, right? Because the heat of the moment, is that our true self? Is that who we really are? Is that we've talked about this in the past where it's, fight or flight. And is that my fight or flight moment where, I'm like, so, I don't know if I was pissed off because I was getting a ticket, or irritated that she didn't even ask me to move the car. Right. It was like, it was like, this was my last ditch effort to get myself out of this situation, and it failed. So I don't know. I mean, a couple things go through my head, but one of the things I guess I realized is that, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but it seems that just arguing is just a waste of time. Don't you think?
Arguing in the sense of heated, I think that you can have constructive arguments, right?
When does it become constructive?
When the other person listens.
Yes, I think you're right.
Imagine that. Yeah, it's a rare commodity when the emotions are high. So this is why having emotional intelligence, emotion management is so critical. Because when you are in this heightened state and highly emotional, in the fight or flight, like you just talked about, your physical body is in it's not meant for brain optimization. It's meant for physical optimization. You are in a heightened state. The blood is with your muscles. Your energy is being depleted quickly. It's all going to race your heart, to get the cortisol, all those hormones released for fight or flight. And that takes away a bit of cognitive function. Your brain is not working optimally for cognition. And it's just what happens. And so if you can be more calm in it, so if you think of an argument as being able to be conducted in a calm fashion, i.e. in a court of law, they have arguments made to support the defense and to support the prosecution. Mm-hmm. It's just stating your case. It's stating your point. And just like I was talking about earlier, if you have the ability to listen to what they're saying and hear what's going on, like a lawyer does, then you can find an opportunity to maybe restate your case or find another way to win within your case.
So that's, excuse me, that's an interesting point. And you're right. A lot of times if you go to the court of law, and I've been to court many times in the work that I do, you listen to the different arguments, and they call them arguments, but they're more of a discussion, right? So it seems to me that when you argue with someone, it closes people down, right? Arguing with someone closes people down. It's you're there to refute their position only, right? It's like, I'm going to argue with you until you hear my point. But if we listen, then we slow people down, I think. But what listening does is helps open them back up, right? Because then we can ask them questions that might be interesting for them to answer to help enlighten me instead of me trying to prove them wrong, right? So that if I ask the appropriate questions, or if I ask them to explain themselves, if I'm arguing and asking them to do it, if I say to you, explain yourself because what you're doing is wrong and what you're saying is wrong, that has a different response if I say, okay, wait a minute. I get what you're saying, I think. Can you explain it a little bit differently? Or can you explain it a different way? Help me understand. All of a sudden, I open up the door for a larger discussion. I think it makes sense, or at least it makes sense to me.
No, it makes sense to me. Yeah, it does. The thing about not wanting to be like a lawyer is that a lawyer is going to argue to win because it's important for them to win, not to come to a middle ground where like their client is guilty, and so they're going to say, oh yes, we want to make sure that justice is done for the victim, or whatever it is. Like, they are just trying to do their best for their client, whereas we should want to be coming to a better understanding ourselves. We don't have judges to listen and to make the verdict. We have to come to our own conclusions. We need to be the ones who are trying to understand the other point of view. Otherwise, you get nowhere. And by golly, is anybody getting anywhere right now? I don't see any movement on either side because everybody has just got their feet entrenched and nobody's listening.
You mean politically, right? Yeah.
Yes.
The political landscape. Yeah.
Or whatever movement there is. For instance, there are people who say defund the police. And the mayor of Oakland was just on the news. She doesn't want to defund the police. So her house just got completely graffitied. Horrible things were written. And it's like, if you don't think my way, then you are entirely wrong. And it's that kind of not opening to listening to the other side, which leads you nowhere.
So in essence, it's the difference, to keep on that theme. In essence, it's the difference between and I might get some crap for saying this, but in essence, it's the difference between a peaceful protest and a riot, right? Because in a peaceful protest, it suggests in itself as being peaceful, it suggests that we're listening, right? In a
I don't
riot,
know about that. Do they?
In a riot, they're not listening, right? Because they're demolishing things. They're not giving themselves they're not letting the other group or the people that are against the rioting any insight into what they're doing. But in a peaceful protest where you're sitting there walking or whatever, there's a sense of, I'm making my stance and I'm showing you that I want to make a change. And by listening, I think that opens the door for changing people's minds. And I relate that to more of a peaceful protest than a rioting, because I think a rioting is more of an argument. A peaceful protest is more of it's an argument,
statement.
But it's a statement, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. That's where I went with that.
Yeah, I can kind of see that, because it's not as they're trying to be heard, but they too have to have the art of listening in order to come to an understanding, like to get to a point of being able to be proactive to make changes. So you're never going to get your way all the way for many reasons. And until you're able to listen to those reasons, as long as you're making steps forward, I think that there's a lot more to be done with cooperation than with violence.
Oh, I totally agree. And, and I think about Kim on the different conversations I've had. I go back to the lady that gave me the ticket. I go back to, different conversations where I was so sure of something and nobody was going to change my mind. And 10 years later, I've completely changed my mind. And it's just frustrating today because people are, people are standing there and they're not willing to change their idea at all. They're not willing to budge on anything. And what it does is it separates us in a camp, and it continues to drive a wedge. And people are clever. They'll use arguments that hit people at home. They use arguments that'll hit people in their heart. I mean, they're very clever on what they're doing. Like right now, I don't know if you've listened to the news, but Tucker Carlson, the New York Times, is threatening to release his home address. So, yeah, wow. I know. So threatening him to release his home address. Now, I'm not a particular fan of Tucker Carlson. I don't like the rhetoric that he chooses to use during his newscasting. Sometimes he has some really good points, but it's his rhetoric that bothers me. But, that's a violation of his. That's a violation to him. There's something wrong with that. So he gets on and creates a video for Twitter that he just lays in the New York Times, just lays into them. And it's like, you're not going to get anywhere if you do this. If you lay into them in the way that they're laying into you, the addresses are going to be provided to the American people, and we'll see what happens. But it's like they're so stuck on a position that it's almost as if, and this is whether you're Republican or Democrat, or whether it's your argument between your brother and your sister or a friend, you're so stuck on the position that it's like you can't let go, because if you let go, then that means there might be a change. And at the moment, you don't want to change. And it's like, and that's hard. I mean, it takes it takes work, right? It takes work to allow growth to happen. And part of that work is to learn to listen.
And approach, right?
And approach, yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I kind of just want to circle back, and then we can come back to listening.
Okay.
But the whole the violence, the graffiti, the threats that come across, and I'm saying in general, it's everywhere. If you go back, I don't know when we were kids, they had these Scared Straight programs. Mm-hmm. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And they would put the fear inside of people. Yep. And they said, oh yeah, we're going to scare you out of crime. Like, they were using intimidation. They were using a lot of the methods that are being used today. And yet that program didn't do diddly squat to, I'm using all these crazy words today, aren't I? Diddly squat.
That's okay.
Didn't do anything to reduce crime. It, in fact, increased it.
Yeah.
And so if that doesn't work, what does work? Listening is what we're talking about, right?
Right.
In our other podcast about listening, I talked about what I call now a conversation ball. So if you were to literally have a ball in your hand, there's something about your hand. If you think about it, when I'm having trouble last night, I was trying to meditate because my head was going, and I naturally just kind of sleep with my hands over my ribs. And I was trying to do the breathing from my diaphragm, the lower breathing. And I'm like, mm-hmm. Why am I having such a tough time doing this? And I realized, move your hands. So, or either take them down or move them. And as soon as I put them down lower, I started breathing from my diaphragm. It's like this crazy connection between our hands and our brains. It happens when we write. I mean, it's just there. So if you imagine, or if you literally hold a ball or something in your hand, whether it's just, I don't care what it is, and it's your signal that when you're holding it, that you have to listen, it will help you to increase your listening and your focus on listening. It's just like a little reminder, and drop it when you speak, and then pick it back up when you have to listen, and be open to what's being said. I don't know how to break this to everybody in the world, but you're not always right. There are other points of view. There are considerations that you may not know or understand that once you do could actually soften your position or maybe firm it up even more so. But until you listen, you don't know.
Yeah, that goes back to what I was saying earlier. When you listen, you can then ask questions to help you understand their position, and then there's a respect that happens between the two parties, right? Then it's like, all right, he's not just telling me I'm wrong. He might still not believe me, but he's giving me a chance to explain myself in a way that, one, forces me to understand the topic, right? And then to be able to explain it. So it's challenging me as well as the one that's proving a point. It challenges me to make sure that my speech is clear, right? And that there's an understanding there. It also opens up dialogue. It opens up, well, maybe I don't understand everything, and maybe he knows something that I don't know. And then you start the dialogue, and then you're having a conversation. It shifts from an argument to a conversation. Back real quick to what you said, the convo ball. How did you say it?
Conversational.
Yes. I like that. Yeah, I think, and if we have any Native American listeners out there, correct me if I'm wrong. It's a talking stick, right? I think they use the term talking stick.
No, actually, it's different because you have the stick that means everyone listens to you, right?
Right, and then isn't it different? The stick, and then you hand the stick over to someone else, and then they
but they talk, not listen.
Well, yeah, okay, all right, but it forces the other people to listen because they can't talk.
Well, true, but the point is that listening is not just the sounds coming into your ear. Like there's sounds going on all around me as I listen to you.
Right. So that goes
it's active participation in paying attention to the words being said, taking in consideration of the words and what they're trying to tell you and absorbing it versus just letting the sounds come in your ear, which maybe in their culture, which I can't even speak to, but there's a lot of respect within that culture. So an honor for elders. So potentially by the mere fact that they're looking at the person holding the stick, they give them reverence and the respect that's due to them for being the holders.
Yeah. No, it's a cool idea. And and we don't, in today's culture, we're lazy and we just don't have the time. And I don't know if it's not the time or if it's not the respect. I think we say it's not the time or that we don't have the time. But in reality, I think it's respect. I think you don't have respect for me, and I don't have respect for you when we're in the heat of a conversation or heat of an argument, rather. I don't think it's just that I'm lazy and I don't want to, and I don't want to make the time to listen to you. I think what it's really saying is that I just don't have respect for you right now, and that's the ugly side of it, right? Because I think that's the we always talk about going deeper, right? We talked about motivation at one point, and we said, what motivates you to do the things that you do, or what's the motivation behind the behavior? Because it's in that motivation that we find out why we do certain things. And if we never give each other a chance to talk, if we never give each other a chance to listen, then the motivation behind that is just cruel. It's just mean. It's just, I'm more important than you, and I'm going to be, and I'm trying to continually to step above you and push you down farther. And I think it's a lack of respect in a lot of ways. I don't know. That's just
that makes. No, I agree, but respect, is not a word that's used a lot, and right now in this environment, it's not even demonstrated. People want you to listen to them. And just like you were saying, listen to me, but I don't want to listen to you. It's that lost art of being able to give what you want.
Yeah. So Kim, what's that?
I said, is it lost? I hope not.
I don't think it's lost. I think we lose it at some point, and then I think we get it back. It's like, I think we're taught it when we're younger. I remember asking my mom for something, and she would say, "Well, what do you say? Please." And then she'd give it to me, and then she'd say, "What do you say?" And I'd say, "Thank you." And it was almost like I didn't want to say it, or it was because I forgot to say it and I was aggravated, so I said it, And I think we learn that when we're younger, the basic respect of each other. If you go down south, the southern states, you will always hear a mother and a father correct their child, and everybody calls you ma'am and sir. And there's a sense of real respect there. But then something happens, right? I don't know what happens, whether we get our mind of our own or, we get the guts to say our own opinion. Maybe it's teenage years where we finally say, you know what, I'm going to start doing my own thing. And then we lose it. But then eventually we get it back, or we see glimpses of it. So I don't know. I think it's there. I just don't think we always live by it.
I can still remember in my late teens that it was my first job, and I was always called any adult Mr. this, Mrs. this, Miss that, even teachers. And when I called an adult by their first name, it was so uncomfortable for me because I felt like I wasn't being respectful of them because I was taught that. Mm-hmm. Now, I do want to talk about two different things, and this is going back to this fear and intimidation and scared straight. There's a difference between respect and fear, and that we shouldn't be motivated to obey something or do something because it's coming from our heart. Like, we, out of respect, want to do something for someone. Right. This person holds a position in my life. This is my father. This is my mother. This is my boss. This is my employer. They actually have a position that is deserving of a measure of respect. Fear is trying to use that position to garner respect. You're going to do what I say because if you don't, this is what's going to happen to you. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That doesn't get you anywhere. That's not respect. It's a completely different motivation. I know all this because I have a emotion recipe for the word fear, and it goes back to the word, and that one of the definition is a fear of God, and that it went back to having to do with respect, reverence, and fear. And I said, why are there those in the same definition? And when you look back, at one point, it got started about the 1500s, this use of fear with God. And it had to do with the fact that people were converted at the end of a bayonet or of a sword or under threat of death. So your fear of God was somehow associated with respect. And today we see it to be true. And it shouldn't be. So if we come from a matter of respect, not like I'm not listening to you out of fear, I'm listening to you out of respect. It's something different.
It's something, I think you're right. It's something totally different. It's that to fear him is to love him. And it's like, no, that doesn't work for me. I never understood that, and I will never understand that.
I want us to walk away from this podcast with the idea that stop and listen. You've got all these things going on in your head, and rightly so. Not saying that your position is right, not saying your position is wrong. It's saying your position on any subject could be adjusted, and it comes with more knowledge. If we don't seek to grow in knowledge and understanding and breadth of information on any subject, we become stunted. And it's with that growth and with listening and expanding our knowledge base that we turn into, I think, better humans. I know that it's made a huge difference for me, just traveling to other countries, being exposed to things, learning. It really expands you as a human.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I think that's a good, way to end it. I mean, I think that, we tell everybody to stop and listen to themselves. Right? We have told people we've suggested different ways to live a healthier life through meditation, through taking walks, through giving yourself, time during the day to reflect. We do that and we suggest those types of things so that you have a better grasp. And I do that so that I have a better grasp on the things that I say and why I do the things that I do, right? So that I'm more conscious of other people and their feelings and their choice of words and their behaviors, right? It allows me to then open myself up to growth. It allows me to open myself up to make better choices, to make better decisions that benefit me and decisions that benefit you. And, that's the whole point, right? It's not about me. It needs to be more about us. That doesn't mean, go ahead.
I was going to say, and looking at it from, what if they were right? Like in an argument, like what would something look like if they were right? And if you can do that kind of forward thinking and have that kind of imagination to see like, what could that look like? It's helpful. At least that's an idea.
Yeah, no, I agree. One of the things, I gave a talk once on goal setting, and one of the things that I talked about was everybody has these goals and are told to have goals, and we strive to meet those goals, and we fail. A lot of people fail a lot of times. And one of the things I suggested was do some reverse engineering. Start with the end result and then go backwards. In order to get to that step, what do you have to do to get there? And what do you have to do to get there? And then what do you have to do to get there? And then before you know it, you're at the beginning of what you need to do. By doing that, it changes the perspective, right? And you also realized what other things might have to change in order for that goal to be met. Because if you're doing it the other way, you're just moving forward like you do with everything else. But if you work it backwards, then you might realize that in order to get to that next step, this is going to have to change, or I'll never get there. So then that becomes another goal. What do I have to do to change? And, work backwards. So, I think it's a good point. I think I really like this format, by the way. I thought this was really cool. This was so much fun, Yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
And, it really was.
I'm going to have one last thing to say off of what you just said. Yep. And the reason why your advice is so great is because when you don't go for the big change and you go for the goal and for the steps in between, it allows you to pivot, right?
Yes.
Because what you think is the right answer, like we just found out, none of us are perfect. We don't have all the answers. So you might take a step in this direction and go, whoa, this doesn't work. And if we take, we need to go this direction, or we maybe need to make a smaller change in the next step. And that allows you to make a better decisions as you go towards your ideal, right?
Yeah.
It's not the direct course always to get to that ideal state. Sometimes you have to make minor adjustments because that's just the way life is.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Kim, you know what? I think this was fun. This was a good day.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun, John. Thanks for that.
And I will let you know that on the East Coast here in West Virginia, it is stopped raining. And the sun hasn't come out yet, so we're not getting the humidity yet. So that's good. So anyway.
Oh, sorry, it's still blue skies here.
You're killing me. You're killing me. All right, Kim. Well, listen, I want to first thank our listeners for checking in with us every week. I heard some really good comments in person this week from people that I know that have listened to the show. So it's really always good to hear that. And, if anyone has any questions, feel free to type a response, and big shout out to RJ, whoever you are, you always make a comment. That's really cool. So we thank you for that.
And appreciated.
Absolutely. And that's all I have. So Kim, have a great week.
You too, John. Thanks
all right.
so much.
Talk to everybody.
Bye.
shows are available every Saturday right here on heartmindify.podbean.com or wherever you listen. Kim and I would like to thank each and every one of you for allowing us to be a small part of your life. Be kind to yourself and remember, our hearts tell the story, but our mind is the conductor.